What's up, guys? Music fan here. How you guys doing? This is not particularly an album review per se, but this is more of like a first impressions kind of video. And today we're going to look at the new Coldplay album, Ghost Stories, was released yesterday, the 19th of May. And so far it's been going number one all over iTunes, number one literally everywhere. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was mostly because of this song right here, Sky Full of Stars. Just a gorgeously fantastic track, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Firstly, being that this is my first impressions video, so far from the first couple of times I've played this album, so far it's just been different. It's a different album entirely. With Milo Xyloto, we got these big, giant experimentations with grandiosity and, excuse me, and these really big, bassy sounds and these big, huge electronic sounds, and yet juxtaposed by Johnny Buckland's colorful, bright guitar playing. And this album, in turns, is a very entirely different affair from Milo, where Milo was big and epic. This one is very, for the most part, is very subtle and understated. This album is just very nocturnal, is the word I'm using. Like this is an album that, ironically, that it's the day right now, but this album is more perfect listening at the nighttime. This is a very nocturnal, dark, although not in a depressing sense. Like, this is a nocturnal album, essentially. This album is something that you can play driving in your car at night. And the song Midnight, I think, is probably the most closest to that concept, at least in my opinion. So lyrically, obviously, this album delves deep into Chris Martin's separation / breakup with actress Gwyneth Paltrow. And this album, strange enough, even though it takes on like a dark theme like heartbreak and breakup, this album kind of really deals with that notion in a very hopeful way, ironically. Like, it starts off with Always in My Head, and it just starts off with this glorious, beautiful choir behind it. It's really simply gorgeous way to start out this album. And then we get songs like that. We get songs like Always in My Head, True Love, Another's Arms, and Oceans. These type of songs. We get those type of songs that have hints of Chris Martin's breakup with Gwyneth Paltrow, and we have hints of that like all over the record. But then ironically, we have other hints of songs like Magic and Sky Full of Stars, which displays this sense of joy and hope, which, knowing Chris Martin, being the sensitive person that he is just very apparent. It's like, it really, songs, especially those songs, like, really keeps this album from being a complete utter downer of an album. And musically, this album is just very, it's a far cry from a lot of the recent albums, like especially Milo Xyloto. In a way, this album sounds like it's harkened back to the more intimate, almost easy world listening sound of their first album, Parachutes. It really sounds like they're harking back to that particular era. The only difference is that now they take all the electronic textures, the electronic techniques that they learned from people like Brian Eno and John Hopkins, and they apply it to this sense of going back to the Parachute sound and kind of updating it. Actually, they're kind of updating their roots in a way, kind of going back but updating it to a more current 2014 sense. And really, this album is a way different turn than I expected. It's a way different Coldplay. It's a different sound altogether, but it's one that is just really, really good in my opinion. It's a very, very good album. I think, for me, Viva La Vida still marks as personally my favorite Coldplay album. in their catalog. But I think this album is really kind of coming really like a close second towards that list for me. This album is really consistent in its flow and very consistent in just the way these songs are packaged, the way these songs are put together. I'm sure some people will complain about only being like about 9 songs on this record. Some people might complain of, and rightfully so, that they're like, why couldn't there be more songs on this album to make it a proper album per se? And I don't say that with any malice whatsoever. Well, the other thing about this is that it's short and straight to the point. With Milo, you got about 14 songs in a way, which really kind of drags. I mean, it's kept interesting, but like by Up in Flames, it's kind of a bit elongated. But with this album, it's really kind of short and straight to the point. It's really an album that its condensed conciseness really kind of gives it a cohesiveness. It really gives like the listening experience. You don't feel as if you're gonna, oh, I have to listen to this very long album, nor is it like a EP like thing where you say, oh, I want more of the songs. Like, why can't I get more of those songs? It kind of feels about right, just about right with this album. So first of all, I mean, I can't say that I'm literally really impressed with this album. They really dug deep. They really took what they learned over the last couple of years and kind of updated of their original sound. I spoke earlier that this is about Chris's separation from Gwyneth, but I have to say though, like speaking of which, this isn't, in my opinion, this isn't really the best breakup album ever. Like I've heard far worse breakup albums than this. But that being said, for Coldplay, for their catalog, this is a really, it's really good. Like, especially again, Sky Full of Stars right here. Just before this review, I took another listen to this song and it just popped out. It popped out of itself, and it's just a gorgeously fantastic, brilliant, just immensely beautiful song. And I was mentioning before, I did a song review of Midnight earlier, like a month or two ago, and with that song I was kind of left a little perplexed. If you see that review, I gave the opinion that that at the time it left me perplexed, it left me puzzled, it left me intrigued of what this new album will entail. And now that I've heard this, all of Ghost Stories, I can honestly describe Midnight now in 2 words: achingly beautiful. This song is just achingly beautiful in its heartbreak, in its emotion, and yet it's beautiful because of that. It's beautiful because of its emotional intensity and its emotional honesty. And the music goes perfectly along with Chris Martin's emotion with this song, especially in the middle part where he just goes for this really high note in the middle. I'll explain this far more in length and detail in a more fuller album review, in a proper album review. But the songs here are very understated. They don't go to the epic lengths that Milo Xyloto went. None of these big epic choruses, but they're far more restrained. But their restraint gives it a more intimate character. The restraint gives this album, these songs of this album, except for Sky Full of Stars, but they give it a sense of intimacy. And I think that it makes this album very unique, in my opinion. Again, not the best breakup album ever, but it is definitely one of the most interesting I've heard in a while, and definitely, especially with that song "Sky Full of Stars," this album really marks a new era for Coldplay, and that's all I have to say about this album, at least for now. For now, I'll give this album a rating of 4.5 out of 5. Really, the big stickler point for me is that I wish they would have done a little bit more on this album. But again, that will be for a proper album review later on when I embark on a Coldplay discography review. But for now, Ghost Stories, in my first initial thoughts of it, gets a 4.5 out of 5 for me. For now, it really ranks a really high second for me, second to Viva La Vida. But it's still a really great Coldplay album. Not one of their best, but it's really one of their best. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about this album. Sorry this video was kind of long. I tried to make it as short as possible. So, yeah, leave your comments on the comment section below. Tell me what you think. Do you love this album? Do you don't like it? Why do you love it, or why don't you like it? And that's pretty much it. Coldplay, Ghost Stories, first initial thoughts, and I will see you later. Take care.